A woman can spend years planning the day she leaves work and almost no time planning the life that begins the next morning. She knows the date, she knows the budget, she may have trips in mind, projects waiting at home, and a long list of things she finally wants time to do. Then the calendar clears, and after the relief settles, another feeling can appear, not because she made the wrong decision, but because she planned what she was retiring from without deciding what she was retiring to. Retirement is often treated like a finish line. You work for decades, prepare financially, choose a date, and imagine the relief of no longer having an alarm clock, a commute, someone else controlling your schedule. And that relief matters. And it's nice because there may be parts of your work life you're more than ready to leave behind. But the mistake is assuming that once those things disappear, a meaningful life will automatically take their place. You can travel, spend time with family, volunteer, or return to hobbies you put aside years ago. But activities and direction are not the same thing. Travel can be meaningful, but travel is not automatically a direction. A hobby can be enjoyable, but a hobby is not automatically a reason to get up in the morning. You can fill your every day and still quietly wonder what all that activity is adding up to. For most of your working life, direction was built into the structure of your day. Something needed your attention, or someone needed an answer, a deadline had to be met, and then you retire and the role stops answering questions for you. That can feel like freedom, but it can also feel strangely disorienting, because retirement can give you freedom from work, but it can't decide what that freedom is for. It removes the structure that was organizing your life, but it doesn't automatically replace that structure with something you chose. And here's what's easy to miss. Leaving work is a retirement plan, but leaving is not a plan for living. That's why some women reach retirement, get exactly the freedom they wanted, and still feel restless, lost, or underused. They didn't fail at retirement. They reached a life transition they were prepared to enter financially, but didn't fully prepare to enter it personally. When I retired after decades in education and leadership, I had my own picture of what the next chapter was going to look like. And then 1 month after retiring, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and whatever picture I had of retirement had to change. That experience didn't hand me a neat purpose statement or suddenly show me exactly what the rest of my life should look like. But it made questions about time, energy, and what truly mattered much harder to ignore. For decades, my roles helped determine where my attention went. There was always a school issue, an organizational need, a family responsibility, or another decision waiting to be made. And once those roles changed, I had to think differently about what deserved my attention when the role was no longer deciding for me. Retiring from something happens on a date. Retiring to something requires intention. If you're navigating what comes next after 50 and you want conversations that go deeper than stay busy or start over, subscribe to the channel. That's what we're building here, a more honest way to think about reinvention, retirement, identity, and the life you still have ahead of you. When I think about what actually helps women navigate this transition, I come back to 3 questions. You don't need a complicated 5-year plan, but you do need 3 honest answers. What are you really leaving? What do you want this freedom to make possible? And what would that look like during an ordinary week? The first question isn't simply, what job am I leaving? You may also be leaving a pace that exhausted you, expectations you no longer want to carry, the pressure to remain constantly available, or an identity that's become too small for who you are now. You need to be honest about that, because whatever you don't consciously leave can follow you into retirement. A woman can retire from her job and continue organizing her entire life around being needed. She can leave the office and still feel guilty whenever she rests. She can stop earning a paycheck and immediately fill every open hour with obligations because an unfilled calendar makes her feel unproductive. That's not retiring toward a chosen life. That's rebuilding the same pressure in a different setting. So before deciding what comes next, identify what shouldn't come with you. Not everything that made you successful in your working years deserves a permanent place in your retirement years. The second question is the one most retirement planning skips. What do you want this freedom to make possible? Not merely what will I do, but what do you want more room for? Here's some examples. Maybe you want more room for your health, deeper relationships or creativity, learning or service, faith, adventure, or simply a slower and more peaceful way of living. Or maybe you want to mentor younger women or spend meaningful time with your grandchildren. Write, paint, travel, teach occasionally, or contribute to your community without carrying the weight of another full-time position. Your answer doesn't need to sound impressive, and it doesn't need to become a business or produce an income or prove that you're still useful. You don't need one grand purpose, but you do need some understanding of what you want your freedom to make possible. And a quieter life of rest and healing can be a chosen direction. Caring for your health or finally creating space to enjoy your own life is not a failure to find a bigger mission. The goal isn't to replace your career with another demanding identity. The goal is to stop drifting into a life shaped entirely by whatever happened to fill the open space. Okay, the third question brings the entire idea down to real life. What would your chosen direction look like on an ordinary Tuesday? Retirement dreams are usually built around the highlights, such as the trip, the family celebration, or the finished home project, but most of retirement won't happen during the highlights. It'll happen on ordinary mornings, and that's why your direction has to pass what I call the Tuesday test. If you say relationships matter, where will those connections appear during your normal week? If health matters, what will you regularly protect time for? Or if creativity matters, when will you actually sit down and create? And if contribution matters, where will your experience have somewhere useful to go? You don't need to fill every day or schedule every hour, but what matters to you needs to have a place to live. Otherwise, the urgent things, other people's requests, and the easiest distractions make those decisions for you. A mission statement hanging on the wall won't shape your retirement, but what you repeatedly give your time to absolutely will. Retirement's not a test of how well you planned. It's a reflection of what you actually chose to move toward. The women I know who are most at peace in this chapter didn't necessarily have the most detailed retirement plan, but what they did have was clarity about what mattered to them, and they built their days around that clarity, not around staying busy, not around other people's expectations, but around a quiet, honest answer to the question, what do I actually want this freedom to be for? That answer can change over time. You don't have to get it perfect on the first try and never change lanes again, but you do need to ask it. Now, if you follow my videos, you know what's next. Here's what I want you to do this week. Take out a piece of paper or open a note on your phone and finish this sentence. I'm not just retiring from work. I want the freedom to blank. Don't overthink it. Just write whatever comes. There's no wrong answer and no one else has to even see it. But be honest, because the women who thrive in this chapter aren't the ones who had the most elaborate plans. They're the ones who stopped long enough to ask what they actually wanted and then had the courage to build their lives around the answer. If this conversation resonated with you, I created a free resource to help you take the next step, the Reinvention Roadmap. It's a guided exercise that helps you clarify where you are, what you want, and what's actually next for you. The link is in the description below. And if you know a woman who's approaching retirement and may be asking these same questions, send her this video. These are the conversations we need to be having. In the next video, we're beginning an important conversation about gray divorce and why feeling disconnected after 50 doesn't automatically mean your marriage is over. Sometimes the relationship hasn't ended, it simply hasn't changed alongside the two people in it. And if you know you want a meaningful next chapter and genuinely don't know where to begin, watch How to Reinvent Yourself After 50 when you don't know where to start next. Because deciding what you're leaving behind is only one part of the equation. You also need a place to begin building what comes next. This chapter of life isn't about who you used to be. It's about becoming who you're meant to be now. I'm Dr. Linda, and I'll see you in the next video.